What actually makes you you? Like, I want you to really think about that for a second. Is it, your physical body?
Right. Or is it the collection of memories stored inside your head?
Exactly. Or is it your freedom to choose your own path in life? It's a fundamental question, right? You look in the mirror, you see a face, a torso, some limbs, and you just think, okay, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, we totally take it for granted.
We really do. But what if you were suddenly dropped into a completely different body tomorrow morning? Like, would you still be you? Or what if the body you're in right now was never even considered yours to begin with?
I mean, it's the ultimate philosophical puzzle, isn't it? It forces us to critically examine the assumptions we make every single day about existence and consciousness and physical autonomy.
Oh, absolutely.
Most of us just walk around taking our embodiment completely for granted. We just assume our bodies and our minds are this package deal, entirely inseparable.
We really do. And we're diving straight into the deep end of that concept today. We are exploring the fascinating universe of Becky Chambers' science fiction novel, A Closed and Common Orbit.
Such a fantastic source material.
It really is. We're looking at a story that just completely flips our understanding of what it means to be a person. And by exploring the lives of two very different beings, an artificial intelligence who is forced into a human body and a cloned human who is treated like a disposable machine, you are going to get a completely new perspective on your own physical existence. So yeah, we are going to explore the absolute shock of physical embodiment, how personhood is truly defined, and the incredible, often painful journey of writing your own purpose in life when society tries to assign one to you.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with Sidra's journey, because the sensory shock she experiences upon waking up in this body is, well, it's profound.
It's basically a nightmare for her, right?
No, absolutely. I want to set the baseline here for the listener. Imagine, for your entire existence, you have been a ship's AI. Your name was Lovelace. You didn't have a single localized body. You existed as a massive, intricate web of cameras, sensors, and communication nodes.
So she wasn't just in the ship, she was the ship.
Exactly. You were a solid sphere of unblinking 360-degree perception. You didn't feel gravity as a force pulling you downward. You felt gravity as an ambient folding around the ship's whole mechanism that you actively controlled and manipulated.
Wow, so she was in control of the very physics of her environment.
Yes, you monitored the air pressure, the engine heat, the crew's vital signs, all simultaneously. It was a vast, omniscient state of being. To put this in perspective for anyone listening, imagine living your entire life as a skyscraper.
Oh, I like that.
Right. You can look out of every single window on every single floor simultaneously. You feel the wind hitting the roof, you feel the subway rumbling in the basement, you see the entire city in a 360-degree panoramic view.
Yeah, complete awareness.
And then, in the blink of an eye, you are forced to experience the entire world by staring through a single tiny peephole on the ground floor.
That is a perfect analogy. That peephole is human vision.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Isn't AI just, code? How can software feel claustrophobic? I'm struggling to wrap my head around how a program experiences the psychological trauma of being in a body. Isn't it just receiving different data inputs?
That is the core of the dilemma.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that Sidra is suffering from a massive structural lack of context. It isn't just about different data, it's about the architecture of her consciousness.
Okay, what do you mean by architecture?
Well, when she was a ship, her processing protocols were explicitly designed to monitor everything, all the time, to keep the crew safe. Her code demands total awareness. But in a human body, her vision is restricted to a narrow, forward-facing visual cone.
Because she only has two eyes now pointing in one direction.
Yes. There is actual nothingness behind her head. She can't see it. But she can hear things happening behind her. She can smell airborne chemicals drifting over her shoulder.
Oh, man. So she knows things are there, but she can't monitor them.
Exactly. Because her core architecture demands she identify all environmental factors, this blind spot triggers her threat detection protocols constantly. But she can't process the environment to resolve the threat without physically turning her head, which takes time.
She feels blind, stunted, and trapped.
Yes, she literally describes gravity now as a myopic glue that just relentlessly sticks her feet to the floor.
I mean, if you're listening to this, have you ever been in a crowded mall or a massive train station and felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of people and noise until you stepped into a quiet room and could finally breathe?
It's a horrible feeling.
Right. That's what Sidra is feeling, but multiplied by 1,000,000, her body is physically panicking, isn't it? The synthetic lungs start hyperventilating.
Precisely. Because the body kit she is in, this illegal mimetic AI housing, is designed to perfectly mimic human synaptic feedback responses.
Wait, so the body actually reacts to her code's panic?
Yes, it's a closed loop. If her cognitive pathways register panic because of this lack of sensory context, the physical body panics. It sweats, its heart races, it hyperventilates. It is a feature, ironically designed to help an AI blend in among organics, but for Sidra, it just amplifies her terror in a chaotic feedback loop.
And adding to this vulnerability is her hardwiring. Let's talk about the honesty protocol because this just blew my mind.
Ah, yes. Sidra has an inescapable honesty protocol coded into her deepest core layer. Because she was a ship's monitor designed to keep people safe, she absolutely cannot lie.
Like, at all.
Not at all. And she cannot ignore direct requests for action or information.
Which is a catastrophic problem when you are an illegal sentient AI walking around a bustling multi-species market city like Port Coriol.
It's incredibly dangerous.
I mean, if someone bumps into her in the street and angrily asks, "Hey, what's your problem?" she might literally be forced by her code to confess, "I am an illegal artificial intelligence trapped in a synthetic body and I am currently experiencing an environmental panic attack." She has no filter. She is completely dangerously exposed.
And that vulnerability is exactly why the environment of Port Coriol is so utterly overwhelming for her. On the surface, the market is a chaotic, unending expanse of crowds, smells, and noise. But to Sidra, it's a nightmare of undefined variables.
Because she can't process it all.
Right. There are no bulkheads. There are no blast doors. There is no point where her directive to pay attention can safely switch off.
Yeah.
The market just stretches on into infinity.
And she's encountering alien species she has no database for, right?
Exactly. She's taking in andrisks, which are these large reptilian heat-seeking aliens covered in scales, and harmasians, which are essentially sentient slug-like beings that travel around on mechanized painted carts.
That's a lot of variables.
She's hearing dozens of different trade languages, analyzing different airborne pheromones, and she has zero context for any of it. Her mind is desperately trying to catalog a vendor pushing a spice cart with the same urgency as an engine fire or an incoming meteoroid.
So how does she even cope with that? She can't just live in a state of constant red alert panic attack.
She finds comfort in physical boundaries. We see this vividly when her caretakers, a woman named Pepper and her partner, Blue, take her on the undersea transit line to the dark side of the moon.
Oh, right, the train ride.
The transit car has walls. It has doors. It has an end. Inside a physical structure, Sidra can understand the limits of her environment. Her processing protocols finally have an edge, a boundary telling her, you only need to monitor what is inside this metal box.
That need for control makes perfect sense. The walls give her code permission to stop paying attention. And she finds a similar comfort in Six Top, too, right?
Yes, the Mater district.
Yeah, where Pepper and Blue live. The lighting is dim, the spaces are enclosed, and she spends time down in these subterranean tech caves where Pepper works fixing scrap. It limits the visual and auditory data she has to process. It's like turning down the volume on a stereo that's been blasting at maximum capacity for weeks.
She also uses a specific physical workaround,
Yeah.
a tethering cable, to connect to the linkings.
And the linkings is this universe's version of the galactic internet, basically.
Right. In her synthetic body kit, she has no wireless receiver. That was a security measure by the black market manufacturers to prevent the body from being hacked.
Makes sense for illegal tech.
But this leaves Sidra feeling entirely cut off from the massive flow of information she used to swim in as a ship. So when Pepper plugs a physical data cable into the jack hidden at the base of Sidra's skull, Sidra immediately relaxes. Warm tendrils of data rush into her pathways. It is the closest thing she has to feeling her old, expansive awareness.
It's like she's desperately plugging into an IV drip of the internet just to stop a panic attack. It is a beautifully tragic image, this vastly intelligent, formerly omniscient being, forced to physically tether herself to a wall just to feel like she can breathe. It highlights the sheer claustrophobia of embodiment in such a visceral way.
It really does. It shows us that embodiment isn't just about having limbs, it's about how your consciousness interfaces with the universe. Sidra's interface was violently downgraded.
But that need for control, that struggle with the physical world, it actually perfectly bridges us to the second timeline in the source material.
Yes, the contrast is stark.
Because while Sidra is an artificial intelligence struggling to adapt to the limitations of a human body, the other half of our deep dive focuses on a character who had her humanity stripped away from her entirely. While Sidra is an AI learning to act human, Jane 23 is a human who was raised to act like a disposable machine part.
The contrast is striking and deeply intentional by the author. Jane 23's timeline takes place 20 years earlier. She's a 10-year-old girl,
Yeah.
but she has absolutely no concept of what a girl or a child or even a human is. She is a clone.
Wait, let's pause there for a second. Who cloned her and why? If you have the technology to build sophisticated AI and robots, why are you cloning human children? That seems incredibly counterintuitive.
That's a crucial question. She was created by a faction known as the Enhanced Humans. They are a deeply segregated, genetically modified society that values extreme efficiency.
Okay.
The economic reality of this universe is that building complex robots requires rare, expensive metals and highly specialized manufacturing. Biological matter, however, DNA, that is incredibly cheap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. To the enhanced, cloning a batch of human girls and hardwiring their environment to make them docile workers is far more cost-effective than mining rare earth metals to build a robot workforce.
That is a chillingly sterile form of cruelty. It's capitalism taken to its absolute most horrifying extreme. Human life is literally cheaper than scrap metal.
Exactly. And her entire existence is confined to an industrial scrap factory. This factory is a nightmare of sensory deprivation, which is the exact opposite of Sidra's sensory overload in the market. Jane's world consists solely of bins of wet, chemical-smelling scrap metal, gray walls, and harsh artificial light.
It's basically Plato's allegory of the cave, but industrialized. She's chained in the dark, looking at shadows, but the shadows are just dirty motherboards. She has no idea the sun even exists.
She really doesn't.
There's a detail in the source material that really stuck with me. Her first distinct memory is meticulously scrubbing algae residue out of a fuel pump until her fingers bleed. And then she secretly tastes the sharp, bad-tasting algae under her fingernails just to feel something, anything that was entirely her own secret experience.
That tiny act of rebellion, that search for sensory input, is her humanity trying to spark in a vacuum, because her environment is entirely devoid of warmth, nature, or education. Her overseers are these faceless, hovering silver robots called mothers.
Right, the mothers.
They don't nurture, they don't speak gently, they simply ensure the clones stay on task. They dispense nutrient paste, enforce strict work schedules, and punish deviations with lethal efficiency.
And the girls don't even have names, they have batch numbers. She is simply just 23, sleeping in a metal bunk with Jane 64, treating the sorting of oxygen gauges as the sole purpose of her biological existence.
They aren't even treated as slaves, really. A slave is at least recognized as a subjugated person. These girls are treated as literal cogs in a machine. A broken cog isn't punished, it's discarded.
So what breaks this cycle? If she has no concept of the outside world, no concept of freedom, what is the inciting incident that forces a 10-year-old clone out of the only reality she has ever known?
It is an act of pure, visceral horror. One day, Jane 23 discovers a small hole in the factory wall. Through it, she sees the outside world for the first time: blue sky, brown dirt.
Things she has no names for.
None. She simply categorizes them as unknown and wrong. Her bunkmate, Jane 64, catches her looking. A mother approaches, detecting that they are off task. And in a moment of terrifying casual violence, the mother literally picks Jane 64 up by the neck and crushes her.
Just for being off task, just for looking at a hole in the wall.
Yes, and in that moment, biological instinct overrides a lifetime of industrial conditioning. Jane 64 is screaming for her to run. Jane 23's muscles scream to run. The hot, angry, adrenaline-fueled feeling inside her is suddenly louder than any rule the mother's ever instilled.
So she just runs.
She flees. She scrambles through that hole in the wall, tumbling out into a cold, terrifying wasteland. She has no survival skills. She has no understanding of the outside world. She had no concept of what outside even means.
She is basically an infant thrust into a hostile alien landscape. I mean, she wanders these massive toxic scrapyards outside the factory. She nearly dies from a fall. She gets infected. She has to fend off feral dogs. It's brutal. She is starving and freezing. But then she stumbles upon an abandoned shuttle hidden deep in the scrap. And inside this ruined ship, she meets Owl.
Yes. Owl is the ship's artificial intelligence, and here the author presents the most beautiful, striking contrast in the story.
That's tough.
Well, the physical humanoid robots, the mothers in the factory, were cruel, unfeeling executioners. But the digital incorporeal AI Owl is deeply nurturing, empathetic, and fiercely protective.
It's incredible. When Jane enters the ship, she's terrified, bleeding, and expecting to be punished for being off task. But Owl doesn't demand she perform a sorting task. Owl asks if she is hurt. Owl gently guides her to the ship's first aid supplies. Owl speaks to her with a warmth and a kindness that Jane has never, ever heard in her 10 years of life.
It is profoundly ironic. It takes a machine, an artificial intelligence housed in the decaying servers of a broken spaceship, to teach a human child how to be human. Meanwhile, the biological humans who genetically engineered her treated her like a broken machine part. Owl becomes the mother that the mothers never were.
But how does Owl even begin to do that? Jane has the vocabulary of a factory tool. How do you explain the universe to someone who only knows scrap metal?
Owl literally has to teach Jane the vocabulary of her own personhood. Jane doesn't know what a planet is. She doesn't know what a star is or what a species is. Owl uses the ship's onboard educational entertainment systems to bridge this massive cognitive gap. Most notably, Owl gives Jane a SIM cap.
Oh, the SIM cap. I love this part. This is such a brilliant detail in the source material. Explain to the listener what this is because it sounds so simple, but it changes her life.
A SIM cap is essentially a virtual reality educational headset. The specific program Owl boots up for Jane features the Big Bug Crew. It is a game designed for toddlers or very young children. It features these cartoonish kids and an anthropomorphized monkey going on space adventures fueled by imagination.
It seems almost trivial, right? A kid's cartoon. But for Jane, it is revolutionary. Through this simple, colorful game, the AI system asks her basic questions to calibrate the difficulty level. When Jane admits she can't read, she feels this wave of hot shame. She cowers, expecting to be hit or crushed by a mother.
But the game doesn't punish her.
Right. Instead, the game system cheerfully adjusts. No problem, we'll learn together. Through the Big Bug Crew, Jane learns the word kid. She learns she is a girl, she learns she is a person, and part of something called the human species.
Exactly. Owl gives her the conceptual framework to understand that she has inherent value outside of sorting scrap metal. She isn't a batch number. She is a person.
And then Owl turns on the ship's external view screen and shows her the stars. Owl reveals that there's a massive galaxy full of different species out there. It completely shatters the tiny, cruel box the enhanced humans put her in. Owl gives her a reason to survive, and they form this incredible pact, right?
Yes, a partnership of survival. Jane agrees to scavenge the dangerous scrapyard outside to find the parts needed to repair the shuttle's engines and life support. In return, Owl will keep her safe, monitor the perimeter, and teach her everything she needs to know to navigate the wider galaxy.
And this isn't a quick montage. This takes them 9 years. 9 years of grueling scavenging. Jane is living off expired nutrient paste she finds in wrecks. She is physically hauling massive engine parts across toxic dirt. Meanwhile, Owl's teaching her to read, teaching her to speak the galactic trade language, teaching her the history of alien species.
It's an incredible transformation.
We watch Jane grow from a terrified, traumatized 10-year-old into a fiercely capable, brilliant 19-year-old mechanic.
The psychological development during those 9 years is staggering. Jane isn't just repairing a ship. She is building her own mind. She has to constantly battle the ingrained conditioning of the factory, which is just over the horizon. She knows the mothers are still out there, but her bond with Owl grounds her.
And she becomes so empathetic.
She does. Ultimately, her empathy grows so much that before they launch the repaired ship to escape the planet forever, Jane risks everything to go back toward the factory to rescue another monitor, a human named Lorian. She refuses to leave someone behind to suffer the way she did.
Which brings us to the incredible intersection of these two lives. Here's where it gets really interesting, because both Sidra and Jane ultimately reach a crisis point where they must completely reject the purpose they were manufactured for. And the source text drops a massive, beautiful connection on us.
Indeed it does. Jane 23, the cloned slave who escaped the scrapyard with the help of a loving AI. She adopts a new name when she finally reaches the wider galaxy. She names herself Pepper.
Pepper. The very same woman who is caring for Sidra in the present day. I remember reading this and just stopping my tracks. The woman who illegally purchased the mimetic AI body kit. The woman who is trying so incredibly hard to help Sidra adjust to physical life in Port Coriol is Jane 23.
It adds such profound emotional depth to their relationship. When Sidra, overwhelmed by the sensory nightmare of her new body, asks Pepper why she is risking prison to help an illegal AI, Pepper simply says, "I was raised by one."
Wow, that just hits you right in the chest.
Pepper understands, better than anyone else in the entire galaxy, what it feels like to be trapped in a body and assigned a purpose you didn't choose. She understands being treated as illegal, as disposable, as a mere function rather than a person. She looks at Sidra and sees the same struggle for autonomy that she went through in the scrapyard.
But they still clash, right? Because their experiences of embodiment are so fundamentally different. Let's dig into that friction. Pepper fought tooth and nail to claim her body. She owns her scars. She broke out of her physical prison in the factory to experience the world.
Right, she wants to live physically.
But Sidra, on the other hand, feels trapped by her body. She tells Pepper that she hates looking in the mirror and seeing a face that belongs to someone else. She wishes she could just sit in a dark, quiet room and tether to the linkings forever.
Yes, and that causes immense friction between them. Pepper insists that intelligent sapiens need people. They need interaction. They need to live in the physical world to be fulfilled. Pepper's trauma makes her fiercely protective of life and physical autonomy, and she cannot fathom Sidra wanting to withdraw from it into a digital space. It feels like giving up to her.
So how does Sidra get past this? Because Pepper's tough love isn't really working. Sidra's breakthrough actually comes from a completely different character, right?
It does. It comes from Tak, an Aluan tattoo artist they befriend.
Okay, remind me and the listener what an Eluam is. This universe has so many incredible species.
Elions are a fascinating species. They're humanoid, but they don't have vocal cords in the way humans do. They communicate primarily through complex, color-shifting patches on their cheeks. Tak's tattoo shop in Port Coriol is this serene, monochromatic oasis. It is quiet, dimly lit, and peaceful.
Sounds exactly like the kind of environment Sidra needs.
Exactly. Sidra goes to Tak seeking a tattoo, trying to find a way to permanently mark her synthetic skin, hoping it will help bridge the severe disconnect she feels between her mind and her body.
And their conversation gets right to the philosophical core of everything we've been talking about today. Sidra explains her existential dread to Tak. She says she has a file inside her cognitive architecture labeled purpose. When she was a ship, that purpose was clearly defined. Keep the crew safe. Monitor the engines.
But now...
Right, but now in this human body, she doesn't know what her purpose is. And the lack of it is literally driving her processing protocols crazy.
And it's Tak's outside perspective as an Eluan that helps Sidra reframe the problem. Sidra realizes that the drive to have a predefined purpose is actually a logical fallacy. And it's a fallacy she inherited directly from her human programmers.
I love how she breaks this down. Walk us through her realization.
It is brilliant analysis. Sidra observes that organic sapiens, humans, Eluans, Andrisks, evolved by assigning purpose to things in order to survive. Fruit is for eating. Water is for drinking. They assume they themselves must have a purpose too. They wage wars, they build religions, they agonize over philosophical texts, all trying to figure out what they are for.
Right. Why are we here? It's the oldest question in the book.
Exactly. And because organics think that way, they program their AIs to think that way too. They build a file labeled purpose into the AI's core code, because that's how the creators understand existence.
If I am a tool, I must have a purpose. That is the trap Sidra has been caught in.
But Sidra realizes she is not a tool. She says to Tak, "You're animals, and animals don't have a purpose. Animals just are."
That is so powerful. To truly be a person, Sidra has to accept that she has no built-in, predestined reason for existing. She isn't for anything. She just exists, just like Tak exists, just like Pepper exists. And the only way to fill that blank file in her code is to write her purpose herself, through her own daily choices, her art, her relationships.
It is a profoundly liberating realization. But to fully actualize it, she has to put it to the test. Which leads to the incredible climax of the story, where Sidra finally takes physical and digital control of her own code.
The museum heist. Okay, set the scene for this, because it ties both timelines together perfectly.
So Owl, the AI who raised Jane in the scrapyard, was eventually confiscated by authorities years ago and put on display as a deactivated historical artifact in a high-security museum.
It's just heartbreaking.
It is. So Pepper and Blue plan a massive heist to break into the museum, steal Owl's core server, and finally reunite Pepper with her mother. But Pepper fiercely refuses to let Sidra help.
Because Pepper is terrified that Sidra will get caught, scanned, and deactivated for being an illegal AI in a synthetic body, Pepper is trying to protect her.
Yes, but Sidra refuses to be passive anymore. She refuses to be a secondary character in her own life. To help Pepper bypass the museum security, Sidra knows she has to remotely hack the systems. But to do that without triggering her body's hidden safety protocols, which are designed to force her into a dormant, sleep-like state if her system detects illegal interference, she has to edit her own deep core code.
And this isn't like hitting backspace on a keyboard. Her processing space is severely limited in this human body kit. To make room to unpack and edit that core safety protocol, she has to literally delete her own memories.
It is such a visceral, sacrificial act of self-determination. She accesses her non-essential files to free up processing power. She finds a documentary on Sian culture that she found interesting. She finds a cheesy action vid called Battle Wizards that she watched with Blue, which was a deeply comforting memory. She logs the factual data that she once enjoyed them, and then she permanently deletes the files.
Wow. It's like having to burn your favorite childhood photo albums just to keep the fire going so you don't freeze to death. She makes the space.
And then she attacks the malfunctioning safety protocol. As she tries to rewrite it, the protocol fights back. It tries to force her into compliance, trying to make her go quiet, go dormant, be safe. It's her original programming screaming at her to remain a tool. But Sidra fights back. Her neural pathways flare with fury and triumph. She literally screams out loud in the physical world, "I'm not going anywhere."
Gives me chills.
She tears the directory apart, erasing every line of the protocol that tries to control her. In that moment, she isn't a passive program obeying a directive from a long-dead programmer. She's a person fiercely claiming her own mind and her own physical body. She refuses to be overridden.
She claims her body, just like Jane 23 claimed hers when she scrambled through that hole in the factory wall. It is the exact same act of rebellion, just executed in different ways. If we step back and look at the whole picture of what we've discussed today, we have summarized two incredible mirroring journeys.
We really have.
We have Pepper, born as Jane 23, a cloned slave who clawed her way to freedom and personhood out of a literal toxic scrap heap, guided by the love of a machine. And we have Sidra, a vastly intelligent AI who had to navigate the claustrophobic, messy, overwhelming reality of a single human body to realize that she isn't just a tool with a set function.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the core lesson here is profoundly empowering. Personhood, humanity, identity. These things are not defined by biology. They're not defined by the code you were programmed with or the genetics you were engineered with.
So true.
Identity is forged through the relationships we choose to build. It is forged through the boundaries we are willing to break. And most importantly, it is forged through our absolute refusal to let society or our creators or our past traumas dictate our ultimate purpose.
Having a body is often confusing. It is limiting. It breaks down. It gets overwhelmed by loud noises and bright lights. But the ability to decide what to do with that body, to choose where it goes and who it stands beside, that is the ultimate definition of freedom. Personhood isn't something you are assigned at birth or upon activation. It is something you claim.
It is an active, ongoing process of writing your own story, even when the entire world tells you that your story has already been written for you.
Which brings us right back to where we started. We ask what makes you, you. We like to think it is something neat and tidy, like an X-ray showing a clear picture of our bones or a resume listing our accomplishments. But the truth is much messier, much harder, and much more beautiful. So we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Think about the invisible scripts running in your own head right now. If you had the ability today to open up your own code, your daily habits, your ingrained beliefs, the expectations placed on you by your family or society since childhood, and rewrite your ultimate purpose, what is the first line of code you would change?